Clinical trials have led to important medical discoveries like vaccines and treatments for cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and rare diseases. Without the patients who volunteer to participate in clinical trials, the development of new medicines would not be possible. Someday, you may have the opportunity to participate in this type of research. Understanding more about clinical trials can help you decide whether participation is right for you. Let's examine 10 important points about clinical trials, including guidelines for participant safety, the phases of clinical trials, and some common misconceptions. A clinical trial is a research study involving people. A clinical trial assesses the safety and effectiveness of a drug or method of treatment that has not yet been approved by a regulatory agency. Clinical trials are carefully conducted among patient volunteers to determine if a treatment is safe and effective. The idea for a clinical trial often starts in the lab. By the time a potential new medicine makes it to a clinical trial, it has typically gone through several years of testing in a laboratory to see if the treatment could be safe and effective for patients. Before a drug can be approved, up to 3 phases of clinical trials must be conducted on human volunteers. As the drug moves through each phase, the number of volunteers grows, and more information is gained about the treatment, its risks, and its effectiveness. Medical discoveries are not possible without the participation of volunteers. Volunteers with all diseases are needed to participate in clinical trials. Some clinical trials are meant for those who have no other treatment options, while others test ways to prevent recurrence. Some trials are designed for healthy participants and look at ways to prevent an illness. It is important for clinical trials to include people of all races, ethnicities, ages, and gender. Participants from diverse backgrounds help researchers find better ways to fight diseases that impact some groups of people more than others. Patient communities can make other important contributions to clinical trials. Sharing personal experiences can help determine locations for clinical trial sites, patient education resources, and other support for patients who will eventually receive the treatment. All clinical trials have guidelines about who can participate. Before joining a clinical trial, a volunteer must qualify for the study by meeting certain criteria established by researchers. Guidelines are put in place to ensure participants' safety and help researchers learn all they need to know about the treatment, its risks, and effectiveness. Clinical trials are tightly regulated to ensure maximum safety for participants. The drug development process is strictly governed by regulatory agencies in the US, Europe, and other countries around the world. In the United States, all clinical trials must be approved by an institutional review board made up of physicians, researchers, and local community members. In Europe, the process is overseen by ethics committees, all with the responsibility to make sure that safety standards and processes are followed and that risks are minimized in relation to potential benefits. Some common myths might keep people from learning more about clinical trials. You may have heard that clinical trial volunteers are merely guinea pigs, or participants may receive a sugar pill or placebo instead of a real drug. These are types of misconceptions that might keep people from learning more about or participating in clinical trials. The truth is, regulatory agencies set strict guidelines to ensure clinical trial volunteers are treated fairly and ethically and help guide researchers' decisions during the trial. For example, a placebo would not be used alone for patients with serious or life-threatening diseases because this would be unethical. In these instances, patients may instead receive the best available treatment, known as the standard of care. Participation is always voluntary. As with any medical treatment, participation in a clinical trial offers benefits and risks. To help volunteers make informed decisions, the clinical study team is required to disclose all known risks, benefits, and available alternative healthcare options. This is called informed consent and is an ongoing, interactive discussion to help patients make decisions about whether to begin or continue to participate in the clinical trial. Study teams conducting cell and gene therapy trials should be especially attentive to informed consent and educate volunteers with enough information to make decisions during a clinical trial. Participation is voluntary, and you always have the right to end participation at any time, even if the study is not complete. By volunteering for a clinical trial, you can play a more active role in healthcare innovation. Clinical trial participation often provides patients access to potential new treatments and expert healthcare at leading institutions. Volunteers play an active role today by contributing to scientific knowledge that may lead to innovative medical treatments for future patients. Clinical trials may have unique considerations for rare diseases. Challenges exist for clinical trials in rare diseases, including a small and geographically diverse patient population. Researchers and the FDA recognize the issues and are working to help make clinical trials more flexible and responsive to the needs of rare disease patients. Examples can include allowing treatment to move through development with a smaller number of patients, providing flexibility in the study visit schedule, arranging travel for patients and caregivers, and at-home support for study procedures and/or drug administration. A patient with a rare disease can play a proactive role in finding information about clinical trials. According to Global Genes, patients can help move drug discovery and preclinical development for rare diseases forward by taking part in patient registries, donating tissue to biobanks, and sharing genetic data. These types of patient registries help improve understanding and expand the knowledge base for companies developing treatments, while the research is still taking place in the laboratory. Only through clinical research can we discover new and better treatment options. Speak with your healthcare team or visit an online clinical trials database in your country to learn more about how you or a loved one can play a role in current and future healthcare innovation.